Essendon supporters and members. It's obviously more important than ever in 2021 to be a member of your club if you want to get to games during the home and away season. So all members will have the first opportunity to get tickets to Bombers' home games, with reserve seat members given priority access as the AFL works through its COVID restrictions for 2021. So if you want to get to games, bring along your family and friends and make sure they don the sash this year.
Just on that front, Carlton is giving all members as well who supported the club through a tough 2020 a free additional membership this year that can be gifted to a family member or friend who isn't already a member. So if you haven't done so already, contact the membership team, Blues fans, on 1300 227 586 or at membership@carltonfc.com.au.
Lockie O'Brien warming up as well now, Riley, so we're likely to see him in this last quarter. Michael Gibbons still a chance to come on.
Yeah, I think Michael Gibbons was just having a joke with a couple of the coaches at three-quarter time, was still in the Carlton tracksuit. So I think Michael Gibbons might be a miss for today. But Lockie O'Brien is one who will see some action in the final quarter. Though in saying that, he's just sprinting up the stands at the moment. I'm not sure what he's doing. He's running through the actual grandstand here at Icon Park. So he's kitted out. He's got his boots on, so hopefully he should come back at some stage.
An injury interruption as well for Cal Moore as well. He's got his right calf strap, so a bit of a setback for him as he left the ground in the three-quarter time huddle, and obviously vying for a spot on the list via the pre-season signing period.
Here's Harry Mackay, who delivers this one inside 50 mark. Pitney camped underneath it, but that is a very nice mark from James Stewart, who's done some very good things. Michael Gibbons, another one who looks like he's pulled the arm of the Carlton coaching group and is coming out wearing his full kit for the final quarter. So we will see Michael Gibbons and Lockie O'Brien at some stage this year. I spoke to David Teague earlier this month for AFL.com.au, and he was very bullish on what Lockie O'Brien could do. Said he'd really got his running power and his kicking abilities back after a pretty injury-interrupted pre-season last year. And he said he's really using the ball well again. He's got that outside run going again. So that's why Carlton drafted him with a top 10 pick in that 2017 NAB AFL draft. And Paddy Dow, who they took at pick 3 that year, has been able to showcase his potential today. We'll see if Lockie O'Brien, if he gets 20-odd minutes in the game's final stages, if he's able to, as well as Adam Sards and Harry Mackay might have just collided then in a contest. Harry Mackay standing the marquee. The Carlton trainer came out to him, but he's quickly brushed him aside and said he's fine. So Adam Sard, the other one who limped away slightly from that contest, but look like they're all okay for the Blues. In fact, Harry Mackay might actually just be jogging off here at the moment. Some less than ideal signs for Harry.
Yeah, not ideal. He's obviously had, just as we spoke about before, one of his best pre-seasons yet. His continuity and getting through some months without any setbacks. So hopefully this is on the minor end and just a knock. But obviously he's favouring that injury there, his right side.
It's the last thing you want in an unofficial scratch match, to see your number one key forward limp off with 20-odd minutes to go. So,
especially given the key forward stocks, when they're all up and going at Carlton, obviously is really strong, isn't it? We've got injury. Levi Casbolt missing today, though. Mitch McGovern is missing with a hamstring issue. Charlie Curnow will be back sometime in the second half of the season. So obviously there's a fair reliance on Harry Mackay, and I think that's something that he was growing to and warming to. He's a player who does like the spotlight and does love the swagger that comes with being a tall forward, and I think that's something that we probably would have seen unfold this year. So hopefully it's just a minor one and a bit of a scare.
Just another one to keep an eye on here is Jacob Wiedering, who's limped away from that contest. So Carlton's two real pillars, up forward and down back. He's just shaking off a little, what looks to be a bit of an ankle injury on that right side, Jacob Wiedering. But it's a free kick which Alec Waterman, the train-on player for Essendon, has accepted. He's looking for his second goal of the day. He's been a prolific ball winner today, but he's done enough nice things, and he's a fantastic kick. He drills that one through and gets one back for Essendon. So margin reduced to 25 points. Alec Waterman's got his second. And as we wrote on AFL.com.au earlier this week, that the train-on spots are down to 1 at Essendon, so you'd have to think he's in the box seat to earn that final spot in their list.
Yeah, Angus Baker from New South Wales and formerly of the Giants Academy, and also Charlie Byrne The dashing half-back did spend some weeks training with the club at the start of this pre-season, but Waterman is the last one standing. That doesn't guarantee it. Last year the Bombers had Nigel Lockyer be one of the last people standing at their training group, and they ended up going with Ruckman, Henry Crawford. So you're never quite sure which way they've chosen to go, but Waterman certainly has done his hopes no harm.
You can see that Jacob Wiedering has gone down to match him up. The doctor did come out to Wiedering, but he's fine. He's continuing on in this one. He's just copped a bit of a knock in that last contest as Darcy Parish wins the ball out of the centre. Archie Perkins on it, and he's been caught on a couple of times, Archie Perkins, so he's still getting up to the pace of senior footy. As you mentioned before, it's probably his first official hit out in almost a year, given he would have lost his entire draft year to the COVID-19 pandemic and the cancelled NAB League season. He was certainly one that a lot of recruiters were keeping their eyes on, but hasn't played for a while, Archie Perkins, as the Blues work it out of their defence nicely through Plowman and Ed Curnow.
He just keeps keeping on, doesn't he?
He does. 3 straight top 3 finishes in Carlton's best and fairest, and a real constant presence as Zach Fisher tries to take advantage, but he's not allowed to by the umpire, and David Cunningham will go back.
And we've been at training a fair bit this year as well across a lot of clubs, and Ed Curnow's running alongside Sam Walsh and Matt Cottrell is just like something you regularly expect when you go and see a Carlton session, and that's a great grab from Pitney. And we mentioned before about turning him into more of a forward threat. Well, particularly if there's some issue with Harry Mackay now out of this game, that is a great mark, and he's shown great presence there throughout this game.
He has. Adam Sard back on the field. He was the other one that sort of limped off in that collision with Harry Mackay. He's back out there. Harry's still watching on from the bench as Pitney puts that through. So he's got his second of the day, and the Blues extend their lead back out to 31 points. Yeah, you like seeing that, him, Pitney, the big ruckman, just go down to the goal square and take a few big marks and really throw his body weight around. I was down here at training on Monday and was surprised to hear everyone calling him Brad. I couldn't figure it out until I realised Brad Pitney makes a bit of sense, but doesn't have the looks, but does have the height. So he's an important player for Carlton this year, especially with Tom De Koning and Levi Casbolt currently stricken with injury.
Moving into TMZ territory here, Riley.
So it's a 31-point lead here for the Blues midway through this final quarter. As Pitney gets the hit out, he's doing it all at the moment, Mark Pitney. Zach Williams providing that speed on the outside, which is what Carlton was certainly hoping for when they drafted or recruited him from GWS as a free agent. Harry Jones marks strongly on the lead. One of the most impressive players probably for Essendon today, and spots up Alec Waterman, who takes another nice mark. He's really pressing his case, isn't he?
Absolutely, and the last shot he had at goal was 10 metres further out, so the distance won't be any trouble. He banged that one home, and obviously the son of Chris Waterman, the Eagles premiership player, the brother of Jake Waterman, the Eagles current forward, and his career at the Eagles was pretty short-lived. He had chronic fatigue syndrome in his time there and went back to change himself. He used to be a midfielder, Riley. That was his go.
Tell you what, he can powerful kick and a straight kick. He's got 3, so he's been probably Essendon's most lively forward today. Alec Waterman kicked 2 in this final quarter, 3 for the game. He's taken a couple of really strong marks on the lead, and it's really made a good impression. I think when you think of the 3 train-on players that have played today, and you think what's on the line for them, what's at stake, finding a new home for the 2021 season, that SSP deadline falls on March 9. You did write an interesting column last week about the clubs just debating whether or not they'd use those final list spots or take them through to the mid-season draft, which is returning this year. Essendon have multiple list spots though, don't they?
Well, Irving Mosquito can be put onto the inactive list as well, having done that ACL surgery last year, that unfortunate injury just as he was getting his career up and going. So he'll miss all this year. So they have that option too. They might leave a spot open. Yeah, as I mentioned in the story, I mean, clubs have been debating whether they say, why don't we leave a spot open for the mid-season draft, knowing that there's probably going to be a few bolters as 19-year-olds who missed out on last year. getting picked because of the COVID issues in Victoria in particular. So there'll be a few 19-year-olds who do boom at the start of this season. It's just an interesting one. Every club will look at it very differently.
Nice flowing move, and it's Ned Carl who drills the ball inside 50, but just can't find a target.
The bit I liked about that piece of play was also Jai Caldwell.
Yep.
With the quick hands, a really smart handball to see the guy coming past and to hit him with that one. It's just the little things I think that the Bombers would be hoping to see from Jai Caldwell. I'm not expecting Caldwell to change the way they play just yet, because he is relatively inexperienced, but just those signs that he's coming to grips with the pace of the game and also some teammates around him.
Tom Cutler getting that ball and intercepting, but the Blues Bombers can't get it out of their back 50, and Ed Curnow will deliver it back inside. Here's Will Setterfield, who spent most of the day on a wing. Probably played his best footy as an inside midfielder last year in what was perhaps his best year on Carlton's list and as an AFL player, but back on a wing with the Blues trialling a few others through the centre of the ground.
Michael Gibbons is resurfaced as a sub. It was almost like the sub rules back. He's just active, quick, and he kicks it to his good mate, Zach Fisher. A nice little pinpoint pass. One play we haven't seen yet from a Carlton perspective.
As Fisher wheels around and just sneaks that home.
That's another goal for Fisher. Another goal to the Carlton small forwards too, who Mark Murphy's kicked one, Fisher's kicked two, Cunningham pushed forward and kicked one there, Dow's kicked two. So some good results from a smaller fleet of players there. One play we haven't seen yet, Riley, though, just saw him warming up, was Liam Stocker. You spoke to David Teague about him a couple of weeks ago. Where's he at as a footballer?
Yeah, he's finally got his tracksuit top off. So he's about to come on, Liam Stocker, for the last 15 minutes or so of this contest. Look, Carlton have looked to get him back in the midfield under David Teague. Probably moved to half back in his first couple of years under Brendan Bolton, but Teague's really adamant that he sees him as a powerful stoppage midfielder, and he said as the summer progressed and as Carlton started ramping up their contact work and they started doing stoppage practice at training, that Liam Stocker was one that really excelled. So, I mean, look, that's where he made his name as a junior playing in the NAB League, one of the NAB League's best player coming through the system. It's where Carlton probably identified him. They traded up in that high-profile trade with Adelaide to get him, and that's probably where they see him playing. Well, where their recruitment team probably saw him playing his best footy. So he is playing back as that inside midfielder and played 5 games in his first year. Unfortunately, didn't manage a game last year, but he's one that Blues fans will be excited about this year if he can eventually get back on the park.
Morris medalist at under 18 level in the NAB League. So, and that was as an inside midfielder who could kick it on both feet. It was really powerful and had a great second half of the season. So hopefully he can get back to that sort of confidence. And from what we understand, his pre-season has been epic with how much work he puts in.
Yes.
Hopefully that can translate once games roll around.
Yeah, that's been a factor of every time we come down here to Icon Park, you always hear that he's one of the first on the track and one of the last to leave. So hopefully it can translate to some good footy, as it looks like Harrison Jones might have been held in the contest there. Now the ball's going to, guess who? Alec Waterman.
He's getting closer and closer with every shot.
He started on the goal line from a 50-metre penalty, but this is kind of turning into a pretty remarkable story. He's lining up for his 4th goal today. I mean, he's almost demanding a spot in that Essendon list ahead of round 1, and kicks that one. He hasn't even made the goal umpire move yet so far, but I mean, hypothetically speaking, Cal, if he was to win a place on Essendon's list by March 9, you'd almost have to pencil him in for round 1 at this rate.
Well, they've obviously got the AAMI Community Series clash against Geelong coming up, but that game against Hawthorn in round 1, you can imagine now, he'd have a fair bit of confidence heading into this game that he was a really good shot at it, and he's absolutely made the most of it. And it hasn't been in a full game either. He spent some time on the interchange bench, but this quarter, clearly with 3 shots on goal, 3 dead-eye kicks, I think Essendon supporters would be looking at this guy and thinking, can he be a player who supports the forward group that's already there? Now, it's worth looking and talking about who the players there. We see Harrison Jones, we've seen Archie Perkins do snippets. Devon Smith's been really good today. Braden Ham's pushed up as well. Jake Stringer is still Essendon's most important forward. He's not out there. There's some uncertainty around when he gets back at the start of the season with that Achilles/ankle/calf issue that he's had at different stages throughout the pre-season. But he is clearly their best forward and their better chance at kicking a fair tally of goals, and probably would have won their goal kicking for the 3rd straight year last year had he not been injured with that ankle injury. So he's the most important one. If they can build around him with some different players, then there's probably enough, I think, that on the back of today to think that they might be able to hit the scoreboard. And that was the main question coming into today's game. Who's going to kick the goals? And Waterman's bobbed up with 4.
Sees Adam Sard in a pretty unfamiliar position and kicks it to his old teammate, James Stewart, on the last line of defence. The Blues just rushed it through for a behind. That came from a long penetrating kick from Lockie O'Brien, which is what we spoke about before. So a real 55, 60 metre kick going inside 50. So that's what he is capable of when he can get the ball in space, as Waterman looks to get out the back again.
And a lot of words spoken over the past couple of weeks, Rolly, about this man on the mark adjustment. Again today, like yesterday's practice game, only one 50-metre penalty called as a result of it. I see new umpires boss Dan Richardson is here watching on. Obviously formerly the footy boss at the Bombers. Departed the club at the end of last season and was quickly snapped up by the AFL in that position. So he's here overseeing that area of the game, and here's 2-metre Peter with his hands out. And look, one of his redeeming qualities, Riley, is kicking. He's an excellent kick. And I think that, across his time in his career, we've seen that at the Suns. And even going back to his draft year in 2014, he's just a fantastic kick. And I know I'm risking putting the Moz on him here.
Yep.
Not too bad.
Just drifting back. Nick Cox is going to float in and take a uncontested mark in the end, directly in front. Wheels around and kicks a goal. You're right, though. He put it into the right place, even if it didn't go through. But
this is a 200-centimetre player, though, who can kick it really classily.
Yeah.
Whenever he's inside 50. So, yeah, I think Cox has been a highlight.
Deserved that goal, didn't he?
Yeah, he's been pretty active around the half-forward line and on the wing. And look, it's not going to be through lack of work rate that Nick Cox doesn't get the footy in his hands. So, clearly has pushed forward from a wing spot to be on the goal line in this instance. Curls it round.
And I think that passage there probably just indicates the dilemmas that Nick Cox is going to cause for opposition sides. He's matched up against Will Setterfield at that contest, and Will Setterfield probably got deceived a little bit by the flight. But even if he makes that contest and it's a 1-on-1, you've got Will Setterfield, who's a player who's bordering on 190 centimetres against a bloke who's over 200, Nick Cox, but plays the same position as him because of his running capacity. So he's a unique player, Nick Cox, and that's the headache he's going to cause opposition sides all year. As Jai Caldwell flicks that ball out very nicely to Zach Merritt. The kick's not as great and falls down to the chest of Liam Jones, but some exciting little midfield passages from Essendon in this final quarter. They've reduced the margin to 20 points. Blues still in control with a few minutes to go in this one, as Liam Stocker has the footy. He's finally on the field. You can see why the Blues and Brendan Bolton, the former coach, did like him as a halfback. He's got a penetrating right foot, but it is certainly as a midfielder where he will make his name at this level. As Carlton goes inside 50. Essendon with the numbers though, and they will clear through Tom Cutler, who, I say that, they nearly didn't. Got run down and Setterfield gets the ball back on his boot.
Probably needed a little bit more urgency there.
Just didn't really have much to kick to though, forward of the ball, did he?
And Ned Carl was another Bomber who started the game quite well. Has probably faded a little bit in that new roll-off halfback, but I thought he was one of the Bombers' best players in the first term as they were up and about, and a player who's moved in with Andy McGrath and Jordan Ridley, so a bit of an elite household there, and he's learning plenty from them as the younger member of that crew.
Here's Will Snelling.
Bit of an underrated player for the Bombers last year. Finished in the top 10 of the best and fairest and played every game. So someone who, off the mid-season draft, which we spoke about just before, Riley, has really taken his second chance, having previously been delisted by Port Adelaide in that half-forward / small midfield role.
Now a question for you. We spotlighted a couple of players before this game. I just saw Jack Silvagni there. As Paddy Dow stands up in a tackle and gets it to Jack Nunes. The strength of Paddy Dow, his upper body strength and the work he's done over the off-season, really on show here. But I spotlighted Jack Silvagni. He probably hasn't had the day that he might have liked. I mean, you really want to see him hit the scoreboard a couple of times this year. And I know there's a few injury concerns now for Harry Mackay, who's limped from the field. Whether or not Carlton has that deep target to support Mackay, or
Well, what do they do? Let's say that Mackay
it's interesting
has suffered a bit of an injury here, and he hasn't come back since limping from the field, and we hope and fingers crossed that it is just a minor issue. But with their other 3 key forwards out injured at the moment, and Casbolt's due to be back by round 1.
We're expecting Casbolt to be fit potentially for next week's March Amy Community Series game. Now, Mitch McGovern, I think, is a bit further back with a hamstring injury. So, can you blood a player who hasn't played any practice matches for round 1? Can you put them straight back into the thick of the action? That's I
think you can.
Pretty lingering question. If you can, then maybe Casbolt and McGovern get up for round 1. There's still 3 weeks. The Blues sort of seem confident that both will play in that game. So, they're still an option. But I think regardless of whether or not they're fit, I think Jack Silvagni is a place for him in that forward line. I look at his form when David Teague took over from Brendan Bolton halfway through that 2019 season. He kicked 3 goals against Melbourne playing as the deepest forward. Got up the ground a little bit, had about 18 disposals, I think, that day as well. That was his best game for the club. And he built on that, had a couple of stints through the midfield as well. I remember he tagged Nat Fyfe against Fremantle when Carlton won that late game with Mark Murphy kicking the goal at the death. So he's shown he can play at this level. Probably just needs to add a bit more consistency, but there is a place for him as that sort of 190-centimetre forward who's very difficult to match up on.
I guess the interesting thing from an Essendon perspective too, when talking about Jack Silvagni right now, is that he's matched up by Cale Hooker, who's gone back to being a defender, having spent last quarter as a centre-half forward option, and that might be the tale of his story too, I think, of his season, because he might be a Mr. Fix-It, and that's the way his last couple of years have unfolded too. Generally been a key back, but switched forward when necessary, and even won some games off his own boot. Think about the Giants game a couple of years ago. Gold Coast as well. Have been on the end of a late switch, and it was a favourite move of John Worsfold to flick Hooker forward and make something happen. I know it was a customary move at the Eagles all those years ago with Adam Hunter, wasn't it?
That's right.
Under John. So he will be one that is an interesting player to watch, and his final year of his contract at the Bombers this year.
Jack Martin unselfishly dishing that one off to Sam Walsh. It's gone about 7 metres, but they've called it a mark. So Sam Walsh has been busy, hasn't probably reached the heights that we know he can reach, but he's done a bit and will be pretty pleased with his output today. This would be a nice little cherry on top of a good performance from him.
Yeah, and he's been a regular goal kicker in the second half of last year as well. 7 out of the last 10 games of the season he kicked goals. He's missed this one, but it is a part of his game that he worked on really hard last year. And how do we hit the scoreboard? We know he loves a goal celebration too. A little bit of the NBA coming out of him.
He was pretty remarkable seeing him celebrate an intra-club goal in that fashion last week.
He certainly did.
Gave it the big one after slotting a couple from a boundary. So we love a player that celebrates a goal, and even though he showed good signs in the first quarter, I think that's why we're disappointed to see Ned Carlton back, because we won't get to see it much in 2021.
Maybe it might be up to Waterman to come up with something, because he has been a real highlight, and he will be a massive talking point among the Essendon faithful after today's game, and as he should be. 4 goals, 3 of them in this last quarter. Looks really comfortable whenever he's around the ball. So
that one just skewing off Liam Jones's boot and out for a throw-in as we tick into the 25th minute of the final term here. Carlton by 21 points at Icon Park. It was that third quarter which really blew the Bombers out of the water. Zach Williams watching on from the sidelines. He's taken his boots off, so he's done for the day. Pretty exciting performance from him out of the midfield. Adam Sard's shown glimpses for the Blues as well. For the Bombers, out of their new faces, you'd have to be really happy with what Jai Caldwell's done out of the midfield. Peter Wright's kicked a couple of goals. Nick Hines had some dash off halfback as well. So,
and you have to consider Harry Jones, a new face.
There's just a bit
in some respect too
going on here between Tom Cutler and David Cunningham behind play. So Tom Cutler clearly not happy, but have to think it'd be something relatively serious if it's happening in the 27th minute of a practice match.
A little bit of a bump there just before the stoppage was unfolding, which he didn't take fondly to.
So there it is, full time here at Icon Park, and Carlton have theoretically got the points. 14-11-95 to 11-8-74 by 21 points here at Icon Park. The goal kickers for the Blues, Harry Mackay, Paddy Dow and Mark Pitney, and Zach Fisher all kicking 2 each. Jack Martin, David Cunningham, Jack Nunes, Patrick Cripps, Mark Murphy and Zach Williams adding 1. For the Bombers, the big story, Alec Waterman kicked 4, vying for a spot on Essendon's list as a train-on player. He was perhaps the standout for the Dons. He kicked 4 goals. Harrison Jones kicked 2. Peter Wright kicked 2. Braden Ham, Anthony McDonald, Tipung Woody, and Nick Cox kicked 1 each.
And just from an injury perspective out of the game, Aaron Francis has got his ankle iced up, so had that knock in the third term and came off the ground. Doesn't look to be too serious there. Harry Mackay finished the game on the bench with what looked to be a right ankle issue, and hopefully, again, that one doesn't look to be in too much discomfort at the end of this game. I saw Callum Moore, the Carlton hopeful of a sign-on position, back on Carlton's list, has appeared to have a bit of a calf nick, so we'll follow those ones in coming days and keep across both club websites and afl.com.au for all the latest on those players. But it's been a good hit out. I think both clubs would have, as you say, Rolly, gotten a bit out of that game, and hopefully as the players who are missing fold into this lineup over the next couple of weeks ahead of round 1, we'll see both sides at even better strength. So a really good lineup and hit out for both clubs, and we appreciate all the members for tuning in.
Yes, we do. It's been a great occasion. Really exciting to have footy back after, I know you were up in the Queensland hub, Cal, but it feels like forever since I've watched footy at a ground, so it's great to be back, and I'm sure fans are looking forward to seeing some action live as well. And Blues are next in action at Marvel Stadium next Thursday night against St Kilda in the Amy Community Series, and the Bombers are facing Geelong, aren't they?
They are, so we'll keep across that one and see if any of their big names can return for that game. Andy McGrath would be expected to play in that game against the Cats in their final tune-up before round 1 against the Hawks. So promising signs across the board at Icon Park today.
Thanks for joining us, Carlton and Essendon fans. Hopefully it's a good season for both clubs. Hopefully they can push to return to the finals after a number of years out. So good luck for everything that comes in 2021, and keep tuning back to afl.com.au and the 2 club websites for all the latest throughout the next couple of weeks.